Okay, here is a series of videos on how to modify, fix, alter, whatever, the player. This is the directory when you have it in Linux. There's a lot of things in it. There's subdirectories, for example, which we'll get into later because all the code is really, most of it's contained down there. Anyhow, the thing we start off with is player.glade. Player.glade is a large, and I do mean large, about 7,000 lines, XML file created by Glade, and it lays out the structure and details on every widget in the system. Every signal, every widget, where they're placed, and everything. Player.glade is actually incorporated into the resources through resource.xml, and I'll show you that. There it is up here, player.glade. There's other things, CSS files, graphics files, and so forth, images, whatever. Okay, that file called resource.xml is compiled, as it were, into a file called resource.c, which is I think it's largely octal, not hexadecimal. You know, those are octal numbers, I guess. And it's got everything in it, and it's massive. It's like 16 megabytes or something. It's all the picture data. It's all the Glade data. Resource.c is compiled into your program and becomes actually resource.o. There it is there, and it becomes an object module. There's also one here, obj, which is obviously from Linux, from Windows. This is then incorporated or compiled into your program, linked into your program, so your program contains within it all of the pictures and CSS and Glade information it needs, and it accesses this through various function calls. That means you do not have to distribute along with your executable, your graphics, your Glade files, anything else, CSS files. They're already built in. But anyhow, that's how it works. So Glade goes into XML, and XML goes into C, and C becomes an object file, and it all gets linked together into the program. There's a lot of object files here. The .o, I probably should have put them in another directory, but so sue me. Anyway, if you want to see what the Glade looks like, or you want to play with it, double click on it. It might come up by itself immediately, or you might have to click display. I was playing with it earlier, and it's asking if I wanted to use the version I was playing with. You probably want to make a backup. Like I say, it's 7,000 lines of highly indented XML. Tiniest little error, and the whole thing's bad, and you won't see anything. So it's a good idea to have a backup. All right, when it first comes up, the thing is, in this program, things are on top of other things. And in the Glade display, they're on top of one another. They're all there, but they're all kind of obscured, like this label initializing, which I'm not sure I even use. Yeah, I guess I still use it, but that disappears almost immediately after you start the program. But there it is, and it's on top of something. Doesn't matter, but it just makes it kind of confusing at first. And when you see it first come up like this is what you would see. It actually needs to be bigger than the screen. There's more stuff over here to the right that's being obscured, and at times you have to stretch it, as we will in a minute. All these guys down the side here, adjustments, they're used with things like sliders. They contain the maximum, the minimum, the increment, and they're used by the program in order to store the current value and so forth. So some of these are probably no longer in use. Someday I got to sit down and find out exactly how many. They're only tiny little data structures, but they look big. Anyway, there's a lot. You really don't see much of anything except way down here is window main. You can open up window main just by clicking anywhere up here. Okay, well, no, yeah, you open it up. So instead of scrolling down, you just click someplace. And there's window main. That's the outer container. Everything is in the window. The stuff indented here, this is where all the indentations come from in the Glade file, are things contained in the window. The window has to have a regular container. There's several different types of containers up here. You can actually see them. There they are. I use GTK fixed. I'm not going to click on it, or it's going to want me to drop it someplace. But you can have notebooks and frames and other things. I don't use a lot of those. I use Stack. But anyway, GTK fixed is a container that you can put things into. You can't put things directly, like buttons and so forth, into the window. You have to put them into a container in the window. So I use GTK fixed. GTK fixed is the fixed one, that's its name. It's of type GTK fixed. It's everything. You can set highlighted green. That's the main container. Everything else is within it. Top 0. That's a container within a container. So I can make the containers visible or not visible. I can turn them on and off. I can move them and so forth. And I do that periodically. I can shrink them and do it. So you have so different containers contain different things. Top 0 is only this green highlighted area. This area over here on the right is not highlighted. So top 0 is only part of it. Within top 0, there's top 1, and this is top 1. Top 1 is that far left panel. Within top 1, we've got a bunch of buttons and things. There's a drawing area, there's a positional scroll, a scroll bar, and so forth and so on. Control panel actually doesn't do anything. Don't worry about it. It's not currently active. I was using it for something else. Draw 1 is where the frequency graphs appear, with that tower and radio antenna with the circles. They appear in there. It's a drawing area. Okay, so that's top 1. Has a variety of things in it. Then we've got others here like visual. Visual contains draw 4. This is a large drawing area, which is the same as this guy over here, but it's the larger version. So there's another drawing area. Show movie. That's a button. Excuse me. Sometimes it wasn't on an area. Let's go further down here. Where's the video draw? There it is. There's movie. Show movie is the button to turn on the movie. The show movie is this little tiny button down here. They highlight in green. They're really hard to see sometimes to spot them. But video draws is the window into which VLC will draw the video portion of your media file. So if your media file has a video with it, that's where it gets drawn. And so what else have we got here? We've got movie. We got rand cover. No, that's not a. Just looking for more things that are areas. There's draw 2. That's where the VU meters go. And then these are the graphics for the backgrounds of the VU meters. They're bigger when they actually run because these are images that the size will be determined when you actually load the image into the slot. Draw 2 is the actual dynamically drawn thing. But there are a bunch of others in here, over here in terms of web buttons and so forth. Anyway, not going to look for them and find them all. Then there's the stack down here. And I click on the stack and it got bigger there. Stack is this area over to the right. That's these buttons down here. You could switch between pages. You see we have a bunch of GTK fixed which are part of the stack. This set of buttons down here controls the stack. It's called a stack switcher. Click a button and it will switch the contents of this. It will slide it in or slide it out. You have control over the way it does it. So there's the that's edit page. That's the page with the tiles in it. There's the page with controls, audio, the albums, and the web panel. And the web panel has something else in it. I don't know what. Buttons, I think. Oh yeah, there's buttons. And that it. There's the WebKit view and the actual thing you really want, which is of course the WebKit itself. So things are within things. Sometimes in order to manipulate this, you need to slide it over, drag it to make it bigger, and then you have to do things like this in order to. And it gets messy. No, I wanted to get into the stack. I wanted to get page edit over here. It gets kind of messy to manipulate, but you have to do it. Occasionally you have to go down and edit the actual XML file. That's pretty rare, but it's a nightmare when you have to do it. But occasionally you have to because Glade doesn't allow you to do certain things. But these are buttons. You can see inside them there is a button called button 3. And the packing is where the button is located. Common is information about the button. I think most of that's default. It's got a tooltip, so if you mouse over it, the tooltip will pop up. And signals, what happens when you click the button? When you click the button, signal is generated. The signal generated is called button 3 clicked. The function to handle the signal is on button 3 clicked. So someplace in the program, there will be a function whose name is on button 3 clicked. And when you click this button, the signal button 3 clicked will be generated, and it will cause this function to start up, and this function will do whatever it is you want to have done when the button 3 was clicked. Okay, and you can see there's loads of these. There's all these guys are separate. There's the name area here. They're all separate. There's buttons everywhere. There's all different kinds of buttons. There's toggle buttons. There's just regular buttons. There's radio buttons. There's check boxes. Here's a checkbox. And it is, well, to see the type of it, you have to go over there. So here it's a check button, because it's lighting up over on this end too when I click one. But yes, this is what it's like. This is what it's about. And anything you want to do, if you want to move stuff, copy stuff, manipulate stuff, delete stuff, this is where you delete it. All the widgets are defined here. What they do, where they're placed, all that stuff is defined in this large Glade file. And that's an XML file that goes into your program. That tells your program where to put things, tells your program how to behave when things get clicked, dragged, whatever. Like a slider bar, it gets dragged back and forth. Okay, so that is the main interface. So if you wanted to change something, add something, modify a color, you'd go down here. So let's look at this one right here. It's SGR Studio. It's a GTK label, not surprisingly. And if I go over here, there it is, SGR Studio. And that's its contents. It contains SparkGap Radio Studio. You can alter it dynamically in the program, but that's its initial contents. And it's 0.5 here means it's centered. 0.0 would mean left. 1.0 means right. 0.5 means the center. Packing, that's where it's located. It's at X position 4 and Y position 4. So it's at the top left of your program. Let's see, nothing. These are mainly default. I don't see anything. Oh, the other thing is its widget name is called logo. Okay, signals, there shouldn't be any signals because it's inert. Labels are normally inert. They don't do anything. So it's called its widget name, which is separate from its ID. It's not really I don't know, they use the term widget name. I wouldn't call it a widget name, but it's the name that it uses in order to look up its CSS characteristics. So if I were to go back to my program here and I would go down to CSS, and I don't know where that is. It's probably in GTK CSS. There's thousands of these. Whoops. I think my mouse is getting old. It's not responding to the clicks. bigtk.css/logo. Yeah, there it is. And that determines the font family, the size, if there is, so if you want to change the size, if you want to change the color, the color of it is, that's a yellow color. It's got black text, and there's box shadows and so forth. Yeah, so that's the CSS that defines the logo. That's different than the actual. So logo refers to a CSS. This widget name refers to an entity in a CSS file. The CSS file is automatically loaded as part of resource. The actual name of the widget inside the program is SGR Studio. If I wanted to make it visible, make it invisible, change its content, something like that, I would use SGR Studio. Logo is what the system will do to look up how to display it. If there is no widget name, it just uses whatever the default is for that particular type of widget. And the type in this case is a GTK label. But yes, if you wanted to go change it and you didn't like the particular color or the size of the font, that's where you would do it. You'd go down to gtk.css, you'd find logo, and you'd modify it. Because you'd have to make sure is logo used anywhere else, and it's not, as it turns out. Because any change to logo would change everybody who's using that definition. Because a lot of these, like here, if I click on play and I go back over here and I look, it's minor button. All these guys are minor button. So if you change minor button, all these guys will change. For example, they get red outlines on the button. I can make them green or something, and then they'd all be green. All right, so that is what the Glade file looks like, and that's where it's located down here. Like I say, don't mess with it unless you've made a backup, because it's unpleasant to fix if you even can fix it. It'll just tell you there's an error in it. It's your business to guess which of the 7,000 lines has the error. It's not very helpful. All right, so that's the main entry point to starting to hopefully understand what this is doing.